in appreciation of Mike Trout's consistent greatness. Mike Trout Mondays for the Wins weekly roundup of stuff Mike Trout did. Look, Mike Trout's not getting traded. This post is purely speculative, because it so happens that this Mike Trout Monday coincides with the MLB non-waiver trade deadline. It's single quote as impossible to find a precedent for a player like Mike Trout being traded. Largely because it's impossible to find a precedent for a player like Mike Trout. But a few of the best MLB players in recent memory have been traded early in their primes. And though the trade market and the way teams value players have changed a lot since those deals, they offer some context. After the 2007 season, the Marlins, in the midst of one of their semi-regular fire sales, dealt Miguel Cabrera and Dontrell Williams to Detroit for a package of young players. Williams was coming off a rough season, but was hardly a throw-in at the time. Cabrera was a 24-year-old four-time All-Star with two cost-controlled seasons remaining before he was slated to hit free agency. He'd wind up signing an extension with the Tigers that spring. With Cabrera's contract inflating via arbitration, the Marlins might have been compelled to deal him for reasons beyond just the players they got in return. But the Florida club received 5 young players, including 2 of arguably the top 10 prospects in the game at the time, Cameron Maybin and Andrew Miller. But while Maybin's a solid major leaguer now and Miller's an all-star, neither paid much dividends for the Marlins. Bert Bodenhop, another prospect included in the deal, spent a few solid seasons in the Florida bullpen. But Cabrera, though a future Hall of Famer and already one of the game's best hitters at the time of the deal, was hardly as dominant or as valuable a player as Trout is now. Trout's out over $102 million over the 3 years remaining on his deal, so the contract situations are very different. But since he's both better and under contract for longer than Cabrera was in 2007, and since again the Marlins would have gotten more from Cabrera alone over those 2 seasons than they did from all the guys they got back in the deal, it seems likely Trout would cost something well more than a package built around 2 of the game's best overall prospects. The Rangers traded a 28-year-old Alex Rodriguez to the Yankees before the 2004 season. But Rodriguez at the time had a full 7 years remaining on the massive contract he had signed with Texas a few years earlier, though he'd infamously opted out in late October 2007. The Rangers were coming off a 71-91 season and committed to a rebuilding, so the deal was certainly motivated in part by getting rid of the financial commitment to Rodriguez. They got back Alfonso Soriano, who was only 6 months younger than A-Rod but cost-controlled through arbitration for the next 3 seasons, and a player to be named later that turned out to be infielder Joaquin Arias. Soriano had a great career in his own right, but was never the generational type of player Rodriguez was. He was already a 2-time All-Star at the time of the trade, and would go on to earn 2 more nods in Texas and another after the Rangers traded him to Washington in December 2005 for 3 players who would never do all that much for them. Still, Soriano's All-Star seasons couldn't come close to those produced by mid-career A-Rod, and the difference between Rodriguez and Soriano was probably greater than the difference between the 89-73 Rangers in 2004 and a postseason team. Again, the money complicates things, but the Rangers should not have dealt A-Rod for Alfonso Soriano. Alex Rodriguez poses in front of an illustration of a sandwich. AP photo / the Dallas Morning News. Louis DeLuca right / Alex Rodriguez poses in front of an illustration of a sandwich. AP photo / the Dallas Morning News. Louis DeLuca right / and A-Rod was at that time already a few years older than Trout and this is nuts not quite as good as Trout has been to date in his career. The third comp for a Trout trade, and spoiler alert, it's also a pretty lousy comp, requires going back more than 3 decades. At the winter meetings in 1984, the Oaklanders traded 25-year-old 4-time All-Star Ricky Henderson to the Yankees for 5 players. Henderson was set for free agency following the 1985 season, so the deal was contingent upon the Yankees being able to negotiate a contract extension with the record-breaking base stealer. They did. So Tim Burtzes, Jay Howell, Stan Javier, Jose Richaud, and the delightfully named Eric Plunk became members of the AS organization. This one's fun because, though none of those players went on to star for Oakland, you can squint and figure a way in which it worked out for the Athletics. Howell pitched well out of the AS bullpen for a few years before getting dealt with prospects in a 3-way deal that brought back pitcher Bob Welch. Burtzes and Richaud, who'd go on to flourish in Cincinnati, were sent to the Reds for Dave Parker, and Plunk, a fine reliever in his own right, became part of the deal to bring Henderson back to Oakland in the final year of his extension with the Yankees in 1989. Ricky returned to an AS club that had Parker at DH, Welch in the rotation, and Javier in the outfield, and the team went on to win the earthquake-interrupted World Series. The Angels seem extraordinarily unlikely to trade Trout, especially in the next few hours. Though the club now sits 4 games below .500 after a heartbreaking loss to the Blue Jays on Sunday, it's still on the fringes of the AL wildcard hunt despite losing Trout for more than a month with injury. Plus, the type of package that would be necessary to arrest Trout from Los Angeles seems prohibitively expensive for most clubs. Sure, some contenders have young stars plenty good enough to headline a deal for Trout, but the Dodgers aren't about to trade Corey Seager, and the Cubs aren't about to trade Kris Bryant, and the Astros aren't about to trade Carlos Correa. A club like the Yankees, with a wealth of promising players in the high minors or at the start of their big league careers, could probably swing a deal for Trout without sacrificing many of the season's major contributors. But dealing away, say, Gleyber Torres, Clint Frazier, Chance Adams and Esteban Florial would mean gutting the farm system for a guy who could walk in free agency after 3 seasons. There's some chance that all those highly touted players do not combine for as much career value as Trout will produce in the next 3 seasons. But Yanks GM Brian Cashman has gone to great lengths to build a club apt for sustainable success beyond 2020. The White Sox, after an impressive flurry of deals to take on prospects dating back to last year, might be able to build a package around Yoán Moncada, Eloy Jimenez and Michael Kopech to land Trout. Put it'd mean plopping Trout into a recently gutted lineup without the help of the young players the Southside club scored by gutting their lineup. Essentially, most teams with the young talent necessary to land a player like Trout are those in the midst of or just coming out of a youth movement. And landing Trout would mean changing the focus to solely this and the next 3 seasons. Trout's so monumentally good that it probably wouldn't be a terrible idea for a bunch of teams to pursue. But so much would have to change hands in any potential Trout deal that it seems too big a risk for both Angels GM Billy Epler and any potential trading partner to take on. Read or share this story. https://uz.ly/2vgg50